As the surface of silver rains down on me, I often wonder how much dynamite and how much time would it take to remove all the land, leaving only the core floating in the middle. With too much dynamite, Astroneer will freeze, or the frame rate will be reduced significantly, and in the worst case scenario, too large of a blast will create some sort of alternate dimension within the planet. A subscriber by the name of Andy let me know that you could select dynamite in creative mode and duplicate it simply by pressing enter. I started with some small blasts, arranging the dynamite in different ways, seeing what impact it would have. I started trying different shapes and cluster sizes. In this case, I created some sort of pyrotechnic octopus, leaving behind a strange phallic mountain. At this point, I started to test the limits of the dynamite. And here's a barrage of blasts before we start taking things too far. This recently endangered fern has a front row seat to the great progress that we're making. I'm employing the line technique, dropping hundreds of dynamite in a straight line. Now let's take our newly gained knowledge and find out how long it takes to get to the core. After a few blasts and about 15 minutes later, we finally made it and fed these resources to that hungry core. Let's head back up top, take a quick look at our meticulously crafted landscape. As you can see, 6 hours and a maniac with dynamite is starting to alter the surface. Now I'm about to detonate the most dynamite I've placed up until this point. And I have to admit, I'm surprised by that sound. I expected something a little bit louder. The trick to these larger detonations is to stand in the middle of the blast, allowing the resources to release and the frames to recover. Finally, we've made it back to the core again, and with us we've brought sunlight to a place where only darkness existed. You can see the rays shooting from the sun. I've never seen this before, actually. I didn't think you could get sun down here. The core has finally recovered its frames, and here it sits endlessly collecting debris from the dynamite frenzy above. Now let's push our explosions to the max. And that's what we did here. As you can see, we created an entrance to that alternate dimension that I spoke of, releasing me from the constraints of solid ground. For this one, I'm using a dynamite fountain to traverse the land, and we're going for distance. These next two, I was using a lot of dynamite. I wasn't sure if this first one was going to recover, and then it did, surprisingly. And the second one, I thought for sure was a game ender, but eventually the resources released and everything returned to normal. Is it possible to destroy a whole planet and leave the core floating in the middle? I'm going to say yes, but it's going to take a long time. And finally, I made it down to the core in time to witness the sacred mating dance of the research capsules.